Wednesday, October 29th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, the life and times of Scrooge McDuck.
Let's do this.
So one of the things we often do when we have the Visigoths over for a burning weekend is we sit around in the living room doing nothing, trying to think of what to do, watching YouTube videos and or random anime while we try to figure out what we actually want to do.
Well, I, say we should play a board game, and if people actually played one, we had plenty of time, but everyone just goes, eh.
Well, I think part of the problem is that when we have too many people over, we don't have enough people for two full board games.
Yeah, we do.
Not if you count only people who want to play board games.
Maybe everyone should want to play board games.
What if I was into, BDSM? Should everyone who comes over want to be into BDSM?
No, but your BDSM people can BDSM, and then everyone else will play board games.
So your board game people can board game, but the problem is we always have like exactly one more person or one less person than we need to play board games.
Well, then that person can go BDSM.
I guess that works out for everyone. But, the problem is maybe it's just short attention spans, or maybe it's just because we don't want to watch a whole long movie because we want to do other stuff. So we'll always end up just...
Watch another short thing? And we could have watched a movie instead of the two short things?
Instead, we'll watch a medium-length thing. We'll watch one episode of an anime, usually based solely on the title. Now, Emily is listening to this now, I'm sure, and she's probably yelling at the radio or the iPod saying, I warned you guys, I warned you. But you know what? She warns us all the time, and I think we actually like ending up watching really bad shows.
Well, no, I don't like actually watching the entire length of a bad show, but I like to, spend a few minutes looking at all the different shows out there to see what they're like, see what the animation quality is, see what the character design is, Well, it only takes like 10 seconds.
The cool thing I found is that if it's a really good show, it's great. Like when we're watching Baccano, it's just like the best thing ever. But if it's a terrible show, like a god-awful show, or just a really messed up show, it's also great because you get this kind of shared experience of something so bad.
Yeah, and if you actually know what the shows are going to be in advance, the whole surprise and, mystery element is gone, and then it's no longer enjoyable to do this.
But at the same time, there's been a lot of times when Emily will be like, don't watch that show, it's moe crap, and we turn it on, and sure enough, moe crap. But this one, she wasn't sure. None of us recognized the title. And before we put it on, I pointed out to everyone, and I said this multiple times, look, the title ends in Chan.
I was the one who pointed out the title ends in Chan.
But I'm the one who said, this is gonna be moe pedophile crap.
I was pretty sure it was gonna be moe pedophile crap too, based on the title. The title is Yaoraka Sengokushi Tsukisase! Exclamation point. Ryo Fuku-chan. And it's an OAV.
Now the thing is, we're like, all right, let's see. It's going to be a moe crap show. We turn it on. Not moe crap. It looks kind of really interesting for about 15 seconds.
There was an angry dude who seemed like he was some sort of ancient warrior of some sort. And he was going on and on about being awesome in some way.
And it's like a grainy black and white film thing.
Well, he was sort of in the shadows. You couldn't see what he was up to, and you couldn't really see his whole face. You just sort of saw the shape of his head, and he was talking to somebody, and something was happening. Maybe an epic battle of some sort, Even if it wasn't going to be a good show, it was going to have like some sort of cool setting of, badassness.
Now, I'm still saying, no, watch. This is going to turn into moe pedophile crap real quick. Just wait for it. I'm sure. I can feel it.
See, I thought, right, that I still thought it was going to turn into moe pedophile crap. But as soon as I saw that guy on the screen, I'm like, no. This is too, there are shows that come in normally. They come in with, sort of a average show kind of feel, and then they go to moe. But there's never a show that comes in, like, with Fist of the North Star Force of, manliness.
We need to make a show like that.
Switches to moe. It's like it's too far apart. You can't move that far. You can move from badassness to normalness, or normalness to moe, but you can't go all the way.
Though the closest thing I've seen is that one, When They Cry. I forget the title in Japanese, but that was the show that the opener was like moe weird crap. I'm like, all right, it's a moe show. And then the beginning of the anime was a dude beating someone viciously to death with a baseball bat.
Okay.
You don't remember that?
The opener?
The opener was like moe crap, and the show looks very like a moe show. But before the opener, it's the main character beating someone to death horribly with a baseball bat.
Do you remember what the show was about?
Yeah, it was a murder mystery kind of thing that kept repeating. It was kind of weird.
Oh, that's the Higurashi, whatever.
Yes, When They Cry.
Yeah, but the part you're supposed to mention to make someone remember that show is that
Colonel Sanders?
The actual show, like the whole middle of the first episode is like a moe school. It's not super moe, but it's a sort of happy school show, and then at the end there's some horrible labor union murder thing you find out about.
See,
and then the girls come in with like the crazy blade.
What stood out to me was that before the opener, it was the vicious beating of someone to death with a metal baseball bat.
You see, I forgot that because then
and we're watching this going, whoa, this could be interesting. And then the opener was moe, and we're like, what? But no, this show, then it changes up again because this guy, it's something like he gets cast out of the heavens.
Yeah,
and
we're
then,
talking about the show we watch now, not Higurashi anymore.
And then it cuts to the guy like yelling and falling from the sky. And then it cuts to his horse also yelling and falling from the sky. At which point, almost all of us were convinced that this is actually going to be a crazy, wacky kind of comedy show. And they land, and immediately 11-year-old girls with shiny boobs.
Yeah, let me read this plot summary here. The Great Three Kingdoms General Ryofu Hosen is cast from the heavens. So that explains the badass dude, and that explains him falling to earth, yelling and screaming with a horse. And together with his first officer, that explains the other person falling from the sky, incarnated as a preteen girl.
Outstanding.
I...
What genre do they possibly put this in?
The genres are action, comedy, and magic, but under themes they wrote ecchi.
I think they missed pedophilia.
Yeah.
Now you might think, oh, Rimmon Scott, you're overreacting to the No. It's not cool.
You only got to watch 15 seconds of this to see what we're talking about.
11-year-old, I assume that's how old they are. Should not be that shiny.
It says preteen. That means 12 or less, I'm assuming, because 13 is the first teen.
Yeah. Even though 11 and 12 are always weird because they have the weird names. They don't follow all the other names of the numbers.
Whatever.
They don't.
Okay.
Even in romantic languages, they really don't.
Yeah, they do.
11, 12, as opposed to 11
in Spanish, right? It's
Scott, that's what I said. All the other romantic languages.
Yeah, they do have all the things that are the same.
No, they don't. French doesn't.
Well, in Spanish,
Ons, dos, tres, catorce, quince, dix-sept, dix-huit.
Well, in Spanish, it's diez is 10, right? And then it's once, doce, trece, catorce, quince.
It's a little more. It's a little more.
They all
different
end in say.
French. Anyway, the point is, show was not good. Oh my God.
No, don't watch this.
The worst thing is,
only watch the first 10 seconds of this OAV to see the humor of what we're talking about.
We're testing out the boxy, so it's got these cool functions. We're trying to, pick something else to watch, but because of the way it works, the show keeps playing in the background because the menus are all kind of translucent, and we can't make it stop until we pick something else to watch.
I could have made it stop. I would have had to exit the menu, made it stop, and then enter the menu again.
Yes, or pick something else to watch. But being indecisive, we had to see another 45 seconds.
I was
of the
ignoring
show.
that and paying attention to the menus, and the audio was just sort of in the background.
I believe it was.
Well, yeah, that too. Okay.
Anyway, at least I have been watching good anime, I promise. A while ago,
I haven't. I've been watching any anime.
I've been watching a lot of anime. I just watched KO Century Beast again, and then I watched a couple episodes again. I gotta say, sometimes, El Hazard, I really like that show, but it was better when I was younger, and it doesn't stand up 100% to the test of time.
Even with cat armor?
It stands up 80% to the test of time. That is still a good show, in my opinion, but it doesn't stand up 100%.
Cat armor? It's damaged?
I don't know. The cat armor and the, all right, fine, 99%.
Bugram?
Bugram. Just Jedi. Jedi makes that show as far as I'm concerned.
Not,
Abba, Zoot, Zoot. Fine, everyone makes that show. Except Makoto, he's kind of lame.
Yeah.
Kind of generic.
What's the lame? We could do a whole show on the, problem of boring main character, exciting side character.
Yeah, I mean, Tenchi Muyo, everyone in that show was great. Except Tenchi. He's just kind of
Except the whole show.
That show's awesome. You suck. How can you like El Hazard and not like Tenchi? They're the same show.
Nah. Not really.
Anyway, but a while Chaos Century Beast is like the bomb. It stands up more. Watching it now was better than when I watched it before because I know more about anime now, and I didn't realize how much of a parody show it was. But also, Emily way back gave me a Nodame Cantabile, and I've been wanting to watch it for a while, and I just didn't. And she described a lot of like really funny scenes.
Isn't it just sort of like a romance and music show?
It's more like Initial D of piano players and violin players and timpani players.
Oh, okay.
It's much more Initial D than it is just romantic comedy. It's much more comedy than it is romantic. It's really, really good.
Well, it's super popular. Like the manga's going crazy, and there's the anime, and there's another anime. So,
but a little reason why it's so good is that it's one of those shows where you expect you're watching, and just having watched a lot of anime or read a lot of manga, you expect it to go in a certain direction. Like, oh, this is going to be the love triangle. This is going to be that, and it always kind of either ups it a notch or kind of escalates it 1 degree beyond what you were expecting, or it just takes it to the straight up face value. Like, oh, the foreign professor appears, but they didn't know he was the foreign professor who's famous. And they kicked him out because they thought he was a pervert because he acted like a pervert, but it must have just been a misunderstanding. No, in this show, he is just a pervert. Straight up.
So wait, the foreign famous professor is a pervert?
Yes. Well, no, first you think they got me. I thought, oh, it's going to be a misunderstanding. He's actually just, German and weird, but he's not a pervert. Then I was like, oh, it's this con artist who's a pervert pretending to be the conductor. No, the conductor is just a pervert.
That's pretty good.
And the other thing that there's kind of a cliche where the main character is really neat and really cool and, collected and awesome. And the kind of main girl character is a slob. And you think, oh, well, that's going to be the romantic comedy. The scene where he enters her apartment, it is dirty to the point of health hazard, and they make a big deal about that. And as a result, it's great. I really like this show. I watched like 8 episodes in the past day and a half.
I'm not watching any anime. I'm not even reading comics. I'm mostly working on computers and things.
Oh, that's just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, shit's getting done, though, so...
You gonna watch at least Chaos Century Beast so we can...
Eventually.
Review that show, maybe...
If you want shit to get done, then I'm putting the other things on hold, and...
Come on, Chaos Century Beast is like 6 episodes.
I got stuff to do.
Plus, I don't think you realize how... Rock and Hono rock and roll bomber.
Yeah, I know. That's not something I don't know already.
I don't think you remember quite how important KO Century
I think
Beast
I remember
is.
all about Dr. Password.
Dr. Password.
Dr. Password.
And Unicharm Password. Okay. Anyway, we should probably talk a little bit about the, what anime news?
Well, yeah, there is no anime news because the anime industry is... And comics, not so much news going on either.
It's not con season, so we don't have anything about that yet. Except, real quick, if you know someone or can think of someone who you would think would be a good fit to present a panel or a talk or a lecture at Kineticon, which is an anime con.
Hopefully someone near Connecticut.
It's anime con, but also web. It's kind of more a general geek con. We are taking submissions. Just I'm getting that out there again.
Yeah, we're not taking submissions for like I'm just an anime fan yet. We're looking for actual people, at our level or higher perhaps.
And if you know a professor who wants to talk about Miyazaki movies or something,
or if you know like a game designer who lives near, maybe in Boston or something,
or you're that awesome and you can convince us that you're that awesome.
Yeah, someone with a resume. Maybe someone who's done panels before.
I see what you... Anyway, that's all I've got. So, is there any news? What are you going to talk about?
No, there's no news.
Nah?
So I'm resorting to something we haven't done in forever. The Geek Back. Oh, I got an email this morning, actually. And it just so happens to be absolutely perfect Geek Back material. I won't make him suffer by sharing his name, right? But usually people, they like to ask us questions, right? And quite often we get the question, hey, I used to watch this anime, or I saw this anime. It was like this. What was it? Like someone will say, oh man, when I was a kid, I watched this thing. it had these lions that combined and a sword. What was it? And I'll be like, a Voltron, right? But the thing is, they're never that easy. It's always, I saw one with a spaceship and there was a captain who was badass. I'll be like, I don't know, Harlock? No, that wasn't it.
Macross?
Macross? I mean, there's 100 shows. I can't help you. And even if I name like 10 shows, they won't say, none of them will ring a bell in their minds. So people usually, they either don't have enough information to, help you figure out what show it is, or, it's not usually a question I like being asked. But someone sent us an email this morning, and I'll read this email for you now. All right. Hey guys, love the show and could go on for hours about how awesome you are, but I need your help. I was on my way to getting into anime and I watched a movie I really loved. The trouble is that I rented it just before I moved from the UK to the US. I can't for the life of me remember what the name was. I think you may have recommended it, but I have gone through all the getting people into anime episodes, including how to get people into anime, but I can't find it.
I'll just point out real quick that we did mention it in those. But anyway.
So please, can you help me? I don't know anyone who can help me out. Here's the description. Wait, I'm going to stop right here for a second. And this is something our Monday listeners have heard from me more, but I want to make sure all the listeners remember this message, right? Don't ask me something because I don't know anything. I am El Stupido, right?
You can ask
Rim
me.
is also El Stupido.
I know stuff.
Yeah.
Well, no.
The only reason it seems like we know stuff is because we know one thing. Well, I know two things. There are two things I know. Number one, if I don't know something, ask Wikipedia. And number two, if I don't know something, ask Google. Therefore, it appears as if I know everything when I know nothing, except to ask Google and Wikipedia. So, before wasting our time, please ask the Google or the Wikipedia, because even if you, and I quote, I don't know anyone who can help you out, there are things that can help you out. Even, in the olden days before computers, I would have said, please ask the library before bothering the professor.
See, I think we have slightly different ways of handling that, because if someone asks me something that I would have to look up, I usually just don't answer. So I only answer if I actually know something.
Oh, so you just don't even bother answering. See, I make sure, I'm trying to help them out, by saying, look, if you just ask Google in the first, I'm not trying to insult people or anything. I'm actually trying to help them. It's like, look, dude, you could save a lot of time and effort if you ask Google. And that's all I'm going to do if you ask me. So it's,
of course, at the same time,
I want people to get the information quickly and more efficiently. That's why I'm telling it to them.
To this guy's credit, it's a show. I mean, it's really difficult to search for a description of a show if you don't know names of characters. It's kind of like, all right, what's the song that goes kind of like this? Da, 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 da. There's no website that'll tell you that. You need to.
Yeah, there is. There's a thing. There's two different iPhone applications, and there are also websites that do it.
They don't work that well.
They actually work really well.
Depends on the song.
If you go do 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 do,
I recall
it's gonna get it right.
I recall that when you were showing this to me, I did just that, and it recommended the wrong song.
Well, it worked for me. I've tried it a few times.
Yeah.
Plus, we'll try it after the show.
I think the problem with that app and apps like that is that they work better the more you know the song. And I think they really only work for people who already do know what the song was.
Yeah, but actually, there's a lot of songs where I know it's like, oh, that song, but I have no idea who the musician or the name is. Yeah, people just know that one is.
It's better.
Anyway, let me continue reading this email.
Okay, I just want to say, this is precious.
If you're an anime fan, get ready to lol. Sorry, dude. Okay, ready? A girl is in the car with her parents going to their new house. They stop off at an abandoned amusement park. She runs after a boy and gets sucked into a strange world. The boy turns out to be a morphing dragon. She gets to work in a surreal cleaning/bath place that services a multitude of creatures. There's an old guy near the beginning who has a spider-like arms and legs. He operates these tablets that control all the water flows, type soaps, temperatures. He has little black ball creatures in his office, like the dark blobs in Zelda games, but good.
It's so much information.
Actually, the evil which runs the place looks a lot like most of the witches from Zelda. Anyway, the human girl passes lots of trials, helped by some characters, hindered by others. The flying long Japanese dragon boy becomes a friend, then an enemy, then a friend again. I think he sacrifices himself for her to return to reality. I hope that wasn't too long-winded. I hope you know what I'm talking about, that I can find more similar anime. Actually, I'd love some suggestions.
How could you get...
Thanks so much. May Geeknights go on.
How could you know that much about the show and not know the name of any character or...
And I mean, it wouldn't be so bad. I mean, if someone came up to me and was like, dude, when I was a kid, there was a show and there was a ship in outer space, but it looked like a pirate ship and the captain was a pirate and it was just all piratey and cool, but with space lasers, you know? That's... Yeah, I could say, all right, it's Captain Harlock, and you might not remember Harlock, right? And then I say Harlock, and be like, oh, yeah. I don't know, I'm using this as an example so much, but whatever. But something you just saw, and you remember in such detail, and is such a huge show. I mean, I emailed him back, and I tried not to insult him too much, but I was like, dude, what you just asked me is sort of like saying... Hey, do you remember this movie? There's a guy in a black suit who has trouble breathing, and there's laser swords, and the spaceships are shaped like X's. And there's a robot that can only talk in beeps. I forget what the hell it's called, though. What is that?
There's a lot of ambassadors.
There's ambassadors, and all this. The soldiers have like this white plastic armor. And there's a big ball in space with a laser coming at it.
Oh, and they're looking for these droids, but they're not the droids they're looking for. And there's a big fat guy, and I don't know what happens to him, but...
Yeah. What show was that?
Well, at least I can answer this dude's question. The show you were looking for is called Urotsukudoji. It's a
great.
real hit with the ladies.
I don't know if we should actually. Why not? The show is obviously, for any anime fan out there knows, it's Spirited Away, a.k.a. Sento Chihiro. Yes, it won an Oscar. You know, you may have heard of it. You know, by Miyazaki.
That movie is seriously...
Studio Ghibli.
I think it's in my top 10 or 15 movies of all time.
It's my number 2 Ghibli movie after El Porco Rosso.
Oh, man. See, the problem is if I look at my top, 15 or 20 movies...
My lowest Ghibli movie, even though it's still great in its way, is Pompoko.
Pompoko. Yeah. I highly recommend that everyone out there see Pompoko. And
yes, especially if you're not Japanese. It'll be much weirder for you.
Yes. However, I will say this. After you see Pompoko, go online and read about Tanuki, and then it'll make a little more sense.
Mario 3 will help you also.
No, because in Mario 3, they don't have quite the same powers.
The golden orbs.
But right, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is the only thing on Anime News Network worth talking about. And
oh yeah, but in case anyone didn't know, if a movie is directed or if Hayao Miyazaki is involved in something in any way, or if it has Studio Ghibli label on it anywhere, you should probably watch it or read it or whatever. You know, you can't lose.
So Funimation sued this company and over selling bootleg anime.
Really? Wow, good job.
Now the thing is, it amazes me that this is such a big problem with anime, more so than everything else. I mean, I'm not talking about piracy. We're not in any way going to talk about fan subs or piracy or, copyright infringement or any of that. I'm talking about out of the blue, straight up, no bones about it, bootlegging.
I mean, when people bootleg, Hollywood movies, right? They usually sell them on a blanket on the street or something, like that. They don't sell them in stores really or online.
Well, even more than that.
That much.
I see bootlegs of movies being sold. Primarily, you only see them in kind of the dark undermarket. You don't see them in retail spaces. You don't see them in the real world, in real stores. You see them from shady people on street corners. You see them in crowded metropolises, on the corner. You see them in, garage sales. You see them online, but you don't see them anywhere else. Nowhere legitimate. Except with anime. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a real brick-and-mortar store and seen nothing but bootleg anime and bootleg anime merchandise. And I mean, obvious. I'm talking so obvious that the cover is a black and white Xerox taped to a case, and inside is a burned DVD.
I mean, to end up with a bootleg real Hollywood movie, right? You have to go to a slight underworld situation. You either have to buy something from a shady website or on eBay, or you have to buy something off the street corner in Chinatown.
Or in the very least, there's occasionally the injection of mob copies or Chinese copies into legitimate, streams of market stuff.
But never to like Best Buy or anything, or Amazon.
Even if those things occasionally get into places like Best Buy, but they come through legitimate channels because someone along the way was corrupt. And even then, at least they look like legitimate pieces. Like there's no way to tell.
Yeah.
But these things are pathetic. I mean, and it's not even just like it's in the cities. Here in Beacon, actually up the road in the mall, a new anime store opened like 2 years ago. And I remember walking in.
I don't know if it's there still because you haven't been up there in a zillion years.
But the guy sold straight up bootlegs, nothing but bootlegs. He just had bootleg anime for sale, box sets for like $10.
Yeah, I mean, there was another anime store, the older anime store. At least the bootlegs they sold were like old school robot shows that no one was carrying. So it's sort of justified in a way, but this place was selling like, Naruto and Dragon Ball and Gundam, bootlegs.
So I remember I went up to the guy and I was like, is this a legitimate North American release? And he said, yeah. And I said, are you sure? And he said, man, don't hassle me. I can't make any money unless I sell this shit.
Then you can't make any money legally. Go out of business.
But it seems like of all media out there, piracy aside, anime gets bootlegged way more than everything else, like in terms of percentage of total sales.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to like Midtown Comics, right, which is like one of the biggest comic stores there is in New York City, right, they will sell bootleg DVDs there, but it's mostly, right, old TV shows that haven't been released professionally yet. Like before Greatest American Hero was on real DVD, they were selling box sets, and they were selling like Thundercats boxes before Thundercats came out, and they were selling, DVDs of like, Family Guy movie before it was on DVD and stuff like that, but as soon as it comes out, they
the Family Guy movie. We watched that, like 2 months before it came out?
Yeah, but then as soon as stuff really comes out, they stop selling it, but they got all sorts of, like, you can just, go and buy, like, like G.I. Joe there on DVD and all that sort of stuff, and it's all animation, basically, that gets bootlegged. And at anime conventions, people know, and they don't let the dealers sell the bootlegs, but at like a comic convention, people get away with it because people there don't, I guess the people running that don't recognize the bootlegs or care as much.
Well, part of it is that if the average anime con has a decent presence of anime dealers, and they kind of self-police because they don't want to get in trouble.
And also the convention, people actually know bootlegs exist and can recognize them.
And the industry is there more. Like most comic conventions that aren't the really big ones are nothing but the shady dealers all like having a shady dealer con.
Yeah.
And they have the legitimate $1 comics. And then all the other people there who aren't competing with the comic dealers, so no one cares about them, are selling the straight up bootlegs of movies.
Yep.
Of course, at least the New York Comic Con does not have that. Last year, there was one booth selling the most bootleg of bootlegs. And I reported that dude, as did apparently everyone else at the con, because he disappeared the next day. And there was nothing like that at the next New York Comic Con.
Yeah, even though Midtown Comics, it provides all like bags for the con and stuff, sells them in their store.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's interesting that, a lot of people are blaming fan subs and whatnot for things when really one of the major things that hurt the anime industry is that they mostly relied on selling DVDs, and people were buying DVDs, lots of people, but the market and the situation of bootlegs was such that people who actually would have and did buy real DVDs
because these
ended
bootlegs
up
aren't
buying
cheap.
bootlegs.
They're not cheap. They cost almost as much as the real ones.
Well,
and
they're
shitty.
cheaper. A lot of times it's like a ludicrous number of episodes in a box.
But even
for like
then,
$20.
like that store, that guy was selling the box sets for $50-$60 still.
Yeah. And I mean, I always say someone who downloads fan subs instead of buying, if fan subs were not an option, they just wouldn't have watched it. So the fan sub doesn't subtract a sale. A bootleg actually does subtract a sale. Someone who would have bought it ended up buying something, and the money went to some Chinese mafia instead of going to the real company. And we have a situation where people who don't know better, which is seemingly most people, like regular old anime fans who mean well, will buy bootlegs unknowingly. I mean, even my sister bought a bootleg not knowing it. And It's not even in a black marketplace. It's in out and about where regular people can get it. You can go on Amazon and find people selling anime bootlegs, and Amazon doesn't know any better. They can stop regular movie bootlegs because they know better, but not anime ones.
So I don't want to belabor the point. I want to get on to the much more important thing we're talking about tonight, but I will say this because Funimation is completely right in this regard, and I urge all of you out there, if you care about anime, when you see in legitimate places, if you see bootleg anime, like actual bootleg anime for sale, confront the people, confront the stores, and if they balk or they won't do anything, like if it's in a mall, report them to the mall and report them to Funimation, because Funimation has at least one testicle, because they're going after these people now.
Yeah, report to whoever can be reported to. Like, if you see, like, there's a lot of stores that sell stuff on Amazon, but it's actually a different store and not Amazon itself. If you see a store selling, if you, like, search for an anime DVD on Amazon and you find a bootleg, call up Amazon and tell them, or email Amazon and tell them, hey, this store is selling bootleg merchandise through Amazon. They will shut that shit down right away.
But if you really want to have fun, instead of reporting to anyone, like in a mall or something, get all your friends together and make little flyers and stuff, and have a little protest around the store, and you'll guaranteed get the local news. And then a local news guy will come up and ask you what you're doing, and then you'll get to tell him, and you'll be on the evening news, and you'll basically put the bootlegger out of business handily.
Well, maybe not the bootlegger, but the bootleg distributor.
The bootleg distributor.
Yeah, the retailer guy.
Yeah.
Who knows if you'll actually get the bootlegger behind it unless there's some investigations going on.
Well, the bootlegger behind it, from what I've seen,
is always the Chinese mafia.
Like, we have this bootleg copy of Planetes, and the subtitles they're fine on the first episode.
We didn't buy it, just so people know.
We acquired it.
It was free from someone else. You know how it is.
The second episode, the subtitles trailed off into Cyrillic about halfway through, and by the third episode, it was just gibberish.
Yeah.
For the whole rest of the show. It's like, what? Great. Things of the day. It's a Wednesday when I cop out and either show a Hokuto no Ken related thing of the day or an old anime music video that time forgot. I've got for you an old anime music video that time forgot. It's also one of my favorite anime music videos, and I think everyone should see it. It's called Failed Experiments in Video Editing, and it's To Papa Loves Mambo, and it's priceless.
Okay.
The thing is, though, it basically makes fun of making music videos, and someone we know made an anime music video to one of the songs that this music video makes fun of making music videos to, but he did it in a non-ironic, totally serious manner, and basically this video preemptively owned him. And it was kind of awful. We thought his video was a joke until it ended, and then we realized it wasn't. So what do you got for me?
I was going to say this for Tuesday, but it's all I got right now. There's a guy named Jordan Mechner. I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry. He's sort of famous, invented Prince of Persia and some other things you may have heard of. And he posted this video on his website, on Vimeo and then on his website. It's a video he took in 1985 of his brother, his younger, or I assume younger brother, David Mechner, right? And his brother was sort of wearing loose Prince of Persia-ish clothing, running and jumping and climbing and such. And he took this video footage and from that made, the animations for the original Prince of Persia. And if you've ever played the original Prince of Persia, even though it was made in like the 80s and is wicked old, the prince actually looks he moves scarily real. And you watch these videos and you're like, holy shit, the prince moves just like that dude. And it's, if you played Prince of Persia, then this video will freak you out. And if you haven't, watch this video and then play Prince of Persia and it'll freak you out. That's how it's supposed to be. And it's just cool that, and it's sort of an important artifact like this has come out, 13 years later.
So, shall we get on with it?
Yes.
Tonight we're talking about a fantastic comic. One that not as many Americans have probably read as should have, but luckily the rest of the world respects the Ducks.
Mostly the Northern Europe, such as Finland, also the Norway, Sweden, Denmark, maybe areas. That part of the world is super crazy about these comics. Super crazy. Like, I think it gets more subscriptions than like anything. But anyway, we're obviously talking about the comics of Disney's Ducks, mostly Scrooge, but also Donald and the kids
Yep. Well, I
and
mean,
whatnot.
I could see us doing a show on the whole duck universe or like a show on the ducks in general, but we're not really talking about the universe. We're talking about two very specific sets of comics that you can buy easily and read.
Yes, very easily on Amazon for wicked cheap. I mean, the cover price is $17, so the real price is going to be way less than that.
And this is totally worth it. But we were talking about the life and times of Scrooge McDuck.
Yes, let me explain the situation here, right? Way back in the day, there was a Disney artist named Carl Barks, way back in the day, right? Like the 40s. And you ever wonder why it is that, there's Mickey, Minnie, and Pluto, and then there's Goofy who's sort of on his own over there, right? And, like, they don't really have a cast of characters about them. But when it comes to, like, Donald, it's like Donald and Daisy and the nephews and Scrooge and, like, they had a whole show, DuckTales. There's Gyro Gearloose and, like, all these
DuckTales.
There's all these freaking characters all over the place. And the reason for that is because way back in the day when, times were tough, Carl Barks went and he sort of took, the ducks of Disney and expanded that whole universe and created all these comic books, out of, pretty much Donald Duck, which I think is, the character is created by Walt Disney. But, Scrooge and Gladstone Gardner and the Beagle Boys and Glomgold and Magic of the Spell, that was all created by Carl Barks in comic books. Scrooge McDuck was in a comic book before he was ever anywhere else. And Carl Barks died, I think, in 2000, according to Wikipedia at least. And there's another guy named Don Rosa. And Don Rosa is sort of like the guy who has carried on the torch of Carl Barks. And according to him, any duck comic written by Carl Barks is canon, and all others are apocryphal. Right? And I'll buy that. And basically what he did is he went back and he looked at all these old Uncle Scrooge comics. And all the old Uncle Scrooge comics of Carl Barks are sort of like DuckTales episodes, Scrooge McDuck is Beagle Boys are trying to steal the money from the money bin, and then there's using some crazy plot of like a drill through the ground, and Scrooge McDuck stops them.
And remember, Scrooge McDuck was a kind of throwaway character in the Donald Duck universe.
Yeah, he was a side character that sort of came on in and sort of became more prominent and whatnot.
To the point where Scrooge McDuck is arguably more popular than Donald.
Perhaps he's definitely cooler. That's
God. Of course, I got to admit, the Donald in these books is a lot more aloof, and I like him a lot more than the Donald I've seen in most Disney cartoons.
Yeah, I mean,
at least.
even Mathmagicland Donald is not so cool compared to this Donald. Anyway.
This Donald is much more kind of arrogant and, well, anyway, we're not talking about Donald.
Yeah.
We're talking about his far superior relative, Scrooge.
Yes. So
McDuck!
What happened is you would read all these old Carl Barks, Scrooge McDuck comics, and Scrooge McDuck would always say something like, this isn't tough. When I was in the Yukon, such and such, sort of like, an old man says, we walked 15 miles in the snow to get right.
That time I had met Teddy Roosevelt and then I stole something.
Right, exactly. So what Don Rosa did, because basically Scrooge McDuck, there's a comic you can buy. It comes out every month. Scrooge McDuck Comics, number whatever. And it kept going and going and going. And for a time, Don Rosa was writing it. And he decided that from issue something to something, I forget the exact issue numbers, he was going to write The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. Oh, here it is. Uncle Scrooge 285, 286, all the way up through 296. All right? And what he did is he took all those things that Scrooge McDuck said and all of the canon material in the Scrooge McDuck comics that were written by Carl Barks, and he filled in the blanks between when Scrooge McDuck was born up until he had the money bin, thereby making a consistent story of Scrooge McDuck's life, instead of just, an old man with a money bin and talking about the olden days, and who knows what the olden days really were like.
Thus, effectively, what The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck is one of the most massive, most masterful, most perfectly consistent, put together, and well-executed effort of retro continuity the world has ever seen.
Yeah,
because I don't think you understand how many quote-unquote Barksian facts there are.
Lots and lots of Barksian facts, so much that in between each and every issue in this book, right? There are 2 or 3 pages explaining in great detail, like exactly why, how he could tell that this is what happened in Scrooge McDuck's life because of these things that he talked about in some Barks comic, and how. The reason Scrooge said this on this page is because, he said this in, Uncle Scrooge Comics number 3 or number 50 or something like that. And it's pages and pages and pages of all this information. And unlike, because Marvel and DC Comics try to do this same thing too, with this consistent universe of perfect continuity of, everything is canon. And
but they always doofus it up.
They always doofus it up. They always have to retcon. They always have to kill everyone in the universe and then bring everyone back, or say, oh no, there are multiple universes, or, oh, actually, no, that didn't happen. That was a dream, or yeah, someone who with wicked, powerful magic undid that. And this is what actually happened now.
But not here. Rosa was able to get almost everything in a consistent manner.
He basically contradicted Barks 0 times and just ignored anyone who wasn't Carl Barks because, everyone who isn't Carl Barks or Don Rosa doesn't mean anything.
And the few times he pointedly left something out, or the few times he was vague about something because there's no way to resolve it,
he makes a note and an excuse. Or a justification.
The justifications are agonizing. This was a labor of love, the likes of which you don't see that often.
The likes of which you don't see I don't know anything else that is quite this.
I would say that it is the work done here in making The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck is on the level of Tezuka's dedication to comics.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess they weren't as prolific as Tezuka, but I mean, if you're talking about, this is written as if, right, someone studied actual history, right? Let's say I studied Roman history and then made a comic that did not contradict known Roman history in any way and told the story of Caesar's life. That's basically what this is, only instead of Caesar, it's Scrooge.
And also, if there were 1,000 times the greater the volume of information about Caesar's life, and some of it was a little bit contradictory and you had to figure it out. He basically did archaeology into a comic book written by someone he liked.
And and usually when someone tries to do some retro continuity stuff, there's always something ham-fisted or something that doesn't quite fit or something that doesn't make sense. But no, if you read this and completely skip all the pages that give you the background information, it totally makes sense. It's a totally consistent and straightforward, continuous story with no self-contradictions whatsoever. And if you made this into a movie, it would be awesome and make perfect sense and no one would question it in any way.
Oh my God, I want to see a movie of this.
Too late. Well, I mean, not too late, but I doubt it's going to happen.
See, it always bothers me. It's like Disney keeps going in all these directions that are well and good, but every time they strike gold, at least gold as far as I'm concerned, they never follow up. I mean, Disney Afternoon, I still like all those cartoons. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, Darkwing Duck, Tailspin.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like Rescue Rangers.
Oh, Rescue Rangers was great. And also,
Scoop Troop was okay.
I at least admit that the Rescue Rangers NES game was pretty damn good.
That was a good game.
I want to play that game right now.
Oh, that was a good game. Anyway.
But the Ducks, or even the Mickey Mouse cartoons and things, I love that stuff. And
when was the last actual Mickey Mouse cartoon? Prince and the Pauper? Yeah. Mickey
sad.
and the Beanstalk is the business. But they keep making every summer they make something completely new, or they
Aladdin 19 direct
for all the Disney OAVs, they're always making Aladdin 30 or what's it, Sleeping Beauty 5 or some bullshit like that, right? Why don't you make some fucking Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck or Scrooge McDuck cartoons? I mean, DuckTales was huge. What's been that huge since? Nothing.
There was a DuckTales movie. You know what? As far as I recall, it was pretty damn good.
It was damn good. It was also, but why don't they just do DuckTales again?
Yeah, I'd watch it now.
I don't see why not.
Oh my God. All right.
But anyway, let's talk about this comic here.
So before we get any further, if you couldn't tell, but I want to say this in no uncertain terms in case you don't make it to the end of the episode. I know some people have the 50-minute commute and then they always miss the last little bit of the episode. The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck is a fantastic top 10 comic.
It's a must-read for all human beings.
There is no one I would not recommend this to. This is an absolutely amazing comic.
Whether you are 0 or whether you're 99, it doesn't matter.
I can't express
I guess if you're 100, if you're 100, still good.
I mean, I honestly, this is right up there in terms of my enjoyment with Sanctuary and Eagle and all that business.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? Not only is it this amazing sort of, history, continuity, like amazing piece of work in that regard, the artwork is also amazing. I mean, usually if someone does like a comic book of something, it doesn't look, it doesn't have like the full production value, or you wouldn't expect like the Scrooge McDuck comic to have the same super production value of like the DuckTales movie. But really, this looked better than any DuckTales movie. Maybe because it didn't have to be animated, but Carl Barks was a Disney animator. This is, this is good God.
Now, the story, if you didn't know, it basically just follows Scrooge McDuck from his childhood. And also, from his childhood, it also has kind of the prologue knowledge of his family going all the way back to like 400 AD when they got their castle. The best is you look
in here and there's actually a page that has the Donald Duck family tree. And it makes perfect sense. The one thing is Huey, Dewey, and Louie's dad is like,
covered by a branch.
There's like a bird in the way with a question mark.
Oh, real quick. I wonder if anyone out there, don't look it up. What are Huey, Dewey, and Louie's names? Kids.
Huey, Dewey, and Louie?
No. Well, those are their nicknames, but Hubert, Deuteronomy, and Lewis.
Yeah. All right.
I don't think anyone remembers Deuteronomy.
Nah.
And if you don't know their last name, well, I really feel bad for you.
No, you're stupid.
It's kind of like, where is Dr. McNinja's family from?
Yeah, I mean, Scrooge is Donald's uncle. Scrooge's sister, Hortense, married Quackmore, and their son was Donald, and their daughter was Della, and Della is Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mom. Everything fits together perfectly.
Man, before straight up review, I just got to say, like, if you are a fan of these things at all, but you haven't really, you don't know a lot about it. You know who Donald Duck is. You've seen Donald Duck cartoons, but you've never read, these comics. Donald Duck's character will make a lot more sense to you when you see what Hortense and Quackmore were like.
Yeah. Yeah. But in addition to that, right, I think the best thing about these comics is it sort of, first of all, it explains, how Scrooge McDuck filled up this money bin. Right, which a lot of people,
And you pretty much get, every bit of money that goes in there.
Yeah. But you also, Scrooge McDuck is sort of viewed in two ways. Either he's sort of, most people know him either as from that, Disney Christmas Carol where he's Scrooge, the actual Scrooge. He's a miserly, grumpy old man who grubs money and he's whatnot. And he is, quite a bit. But he's also, sort of like the adventuring around the world, kind of guy. He's sort of like with a safari hat on, but he's still got a whole bunch of money. But he's zipping around the world doing all sorts of crazy things, trying to get more money. And,
now the cool thing is they both fit into the continuity perfectly.
Yep. But people don't, they don't realize that Scrooge McDuck isn't really mean and miserly asshole, even though he might be at times.
Well, there was a point.
Yes.
But that's kind of the whole point, I guess, of the life and times of Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, the whole point is to turn the idea of, the rich asshole on its head. To be like, no, look, someone can be rich and awesome and not be a rich asshole.
This is the story of Scrooge, a young Scottish lad whose family is destitute to the point that they don't even own their ancestral castle anymore.
Yeah, they had a castle, because it's their, the Scottish ancestry and whatnot, the Castle McDuck, but they lost it because they had no money and he had to shine shoes.
And it goes from he makes an American dime, which is worth bupkis in Scotland at the time.
Yep.
And it was the first dime he ever made, the first money he ever made. From there to being the richest duck in the world. And he earns every single last bit of it.
With his own hard work, not with any scheming or stealing or anything like that.
But, I mean, if you look at the back of this book, you'll see this progression because the cool thing is there's kind of an iconic picture of Scrooge from each era of his life. And in the back of the book, you have this kind of progression of all of them, all the way through from the young kid, shining boots, to the end.
Yeah, it shows you every stage of his life from 1877 to 1947. Now, I think part of the problem is, this makes sense if you use those years, but by those years, Scrooge McDuck shouldn't be around anymore.
Well, don't worry about that.
At least not. Yeah. Don't. Plus, I believe
He
there
does die. I mean, he dies. Eventually, he dies.
I don't know. There may or may not be some story somewhere whereby magic, because there is magic going on. There may be some immortality action happening.
According to the Lives and Times in Duckburg, the epitaph on Scrooge McDuck's tomb in the end is Fortuna Favit Fortibus.
Alrighty then.
Fortune favors the bold.
It does indeed.
But this is a biography, and it reads like one. It is the rise, fall, and rise again of Scrooge McDuck. Because he tries so hard and fights so hard, and yet he ends up failing a lot of the time. And
he fails a whole bunch of times before he makes it anywhere.
But then he finally makes it.
Obviously, he makes it because there's a money bin. That's not a spoiler.
But the cool thing is, like, the way this isn't really a spoiler either, because you all know that there is the horrible, evil, money-grubbing McDuck. The story progresses from, like, his youthful idealism gets lost bit by bit as the reality of an evil and vicious world kind of crushes him. And every time he does the right thing, he gets screwed. And over time, he starts getting more and more ruthless and more canny.
Yeah, he keeps doing the right thing and he keeps getting more money, but the reality of what's going on is very upsetting and depressing.
But eventually, it gets to the point where Scrooge does the wrong thing, and it haunts him. And near the end, you get to this point where he's lost it. He's basically Citizen Kane at this point.
Yeah.
He is basically just locked away in his mansion. There's this, like, that chapter, and this is one of those iconic pictures of Scrooge McDuck, is him sitting there in his mansion as an old man wrapped up, and he says, "Me, I'm different. Everybody hates me, and I hate everybody."
Yep.
And then that's not the end. The rest of the book, which isn't that long, is basically the redemption of Scrooge McDuck. And then the carrying on of his legacy.
Well, it's like the final issue is pretty much explains, how did we get from, Scrooge McDuck who hates everybody to DuckTales?
Yes, but it's wonderful. It's kind of how Huey, Dewey, and Louie, not so much Donald, carry on the legacy and are instilled with this sense of adventure. And Scrooge McDuck is pretty much the coolest duck ever.
Except, well, he's not a duck, so we'll say okay. But I think there's actually a character in this book who's better than Scrooge McDuck.
Teddy Roosevelt?
Yes, Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt and Scrooge McDuck get along, except for the fact that Scrooge McDuck always beats Teddy Roosevelt when they fight.
Yeah. And Teddy Roosevelt doesn't have to learn some of the lessons that Scrooge has to learn because he already learned them, being, Teddy Roosevelt and all.
But I mean, I don't want to talk a lot about it because this is one of those things where I could go on and on about all the scenes I liked, and there's a lot of them. But
the one thing I love about it so much, right, is that, you've got stories of, Scrooge in Africa on safaris. You've got stories of Scrooge in the Wild West. You got stories of Scrooge in the Yukon. You got medieval stories. You've got Scotland stories. You've got, seemingly how could someone have, all these different things in one lifetime, but they make it all work. Usually if you watch like Mickey and the Beanstalk, right? And then you watch Prince and the Pauper, and then maybe you watch like Mickey in Outer Space, and then Mickey in Modern Times hanging on the internet. And you don't expect all of those to fit in the same world. And if someone tried to make up a reason for them to fit in the same universe and for that to actually be the same Mickey Mouse, it would make no sense whatsoever. It would be hackneyed and BS. But yet, we have all these completely, seemingly separate things that you could not, under any normal circumstances, be the same person in the same lifetime. But no, it totally works, and it's totally correct, and it's totally awesome. And, it's great because people like all these different kinds of stories. People like outer space stories, Gyro Gearloose gadget stories, I guess mafia crime stories, Beagle Boys trying to steal the money, Wild West.
The Beagle Boys.
Right? And you can get all of the different kinds of stories there are, all the different settings and whatnot, with the same characters you like, and not have to, have any sort of dissonance in your mind at all. You can carry from one to the next, and it's A-okay.
And it's a romp. It's a fan. I mean, you'll read it pretty much start to finish once you get this thing up.
it is wordy though. I mean, this isn't like a lot of more modern comics or like manga where there's a big picture and like a few words and like a speech bubble, like, oh no.
But it's not like old crappy "I hit you, you little guy"
Right.
comics.
It's as wordy as Stan Lee. There's as many words on the page and as many panels as like a Stan Lee comic, but the words are meaningful. It's not the words aren't just repeating what you see in the picture. It's people say a lot of stuff, and because they're having actual big conversations, and each comic is only 20 something pages long. So when someone's got a lot to say and you got a lot of things happening in only so few pages, you're gonna have to put a lot of words on the page, and so it takes a little longer to read than another comic of a equivalent size, but it works out. One other interesting thing, right, is that every comic has sort of the same visual format, right? There's a cover, and then on the first page, there's one panel that takes up the top half of the page, and that's like the splash page. In that splash, on the cover, or is that on the splash page? I forget. Like he hides the word duck somewhere. Or is it or maybe the word, I forget exactly what's hidden.
I couldn't find most of them.
Yeah, that's right. I think the word duck is hidden on the cover and the splash page, maybe something like that. I don't know, but it's hidden in there, and it's sort of like one of those, find the hidden thingy stuff, and it's fun to do it. It's sort of like an added bonus. You're reading this comic, but right before you start reading it, you're like looking for hidden things, and actually, imagery-wise, the art is so detailed. There are lots of sort of images hidden in the background. Not as much as say Watchmen, but like in the final issue, there's an Eisner Award on the wall. That's pretty funny. And other similar things like that. There'll be artifacts that Scrooge has collected from in previous issues, and you'll see them appear again in later issues, like in a bookshelf or something like that. And it's all good. I like that.
I think we can honestly leave it at that. I mean, when we talk about something as good as this, there's very little to say other than read it, and then maybe we could do a spoilery show, but I don't know if this really suits that, because a spoilery
it doesn't
show
really warrant a spoilery show.
A spoilery show would just be us going, man, remember when Scrooge did this? Oh man, remember when Scrooge did this? Oh man.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, a lot of people, they think about Disney, they think it's some kiddie thing, or they pshaw it. They don't think this is something that they should be reading. This is something that every human being should read in their lives. And if you like it a lot, there's another book, which is the Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck Companion, which has a few extra issues in it to sort of fill in a couple tiny gaps. And if you really like that, you can actually go and buy, you can get Scrooge McDuck comics every month. You can even go back and read old Carl Barks comics. There's hundreds and hundreds of comics. It's the most circulated thing in Finland and other Northern European countries.
You can even get the Clan McDuck tartan, which is legitimate in Scotland.
Yeah. So this is, there is no shortage of this material, but this is the starting place.
Yes.
And also the ending place.
Yes, but it's one of those things where this is the seed, and I'm not going to say you'll know if you'll like it. You'll like it, or you're a terrible person.
Yeah, or you are a terrible person. Come on. The discount on Amazon's got to be cheap. It's $7. Let's see. Let me go look it up, and then we'll end the show. Oh my God. Okay. So it's $12.23. You'll spend more money on like a CD.
I spent more money on lunch today. I went to Good Burger.
Yeah. So you gotta buy this. There's no excuse not to. The library will have it. I'm pretty sure. Anyway. All right. Come on, people. Scrooge McDuck kicks your ass.
I believe you mean McDuck.
McDuck.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.